It's still unclear exactly how Trump's mass deportation plan would affect farm workers. We reached out to the Trump team, which reiterated the president's commitment to deporting migrant criminals.
There's a cold, calculated statistic from Reuters that hits like a warning shot. 26.3% of projected U.S. wheat exports for the 2025 to 2026 season have already been sold in advance, marking a 12-year high. On the surface, it looks like strength. Contracts are signed, supply is ready, the engine is revving. But behind this number lies a deeper, more chilling truth. America's global wheat market share has plunged to just 10.5%, the third lowest level since the late 1970s. It's a contradiction that has stunned even the most seasoned analysts. Opening question: how is it that a global titan like the United States, armed with massive harvests and a head start in preseason sales, finds itself watching the podium from the sidelines? U.S. farmers just came off one of their best-rated winter wheat seasons in recent memory. Over 54% of winter wheat fields were categorized as good to excellent, the highest figure in 6 years. On paper, things should be booming. But a good harvest alone doesn't win markets. Relentless rainfall across key wheat-producing regions like Kansas and Oklahoma threw harvesting schedules into chaos. Moisture seeped into crops, degrading grain quality. Some shipments were reclassified as feed grade. Others faced price slashes. Worse, some buyers walked away altogether. While American farmers struggled to dry their crops under cloudy skies, Canada moved forward, backed by clearer weather, logistical fluidity, and a coordinated government response that included regional subsidies and fast-track export support. Canada didn't just react to market shocks, it anticipated them. While the U.S. remains tethered to a narrow band of traditional buyers, Canada has embraced a diversified portfolio. It adjusts pesticide residue limits to comply with individual buyer nations' health codes. It digitized freight records and customs protocols, reducing clearance times and operational overhead. It studied past shipment inefficiencies across 30 major supply nodes to eliminate friction before the wheat ever leaves the silo. Even a dip of 2.2% in total exports was met with a 1.1% increase in non-U.S. destinations, evidence of adaptive strategy, not decline. In contrast, the U.S. continues to bleed buyers over documentation delays, trade disputes, and inconsistent export policy. Canada, even under the weight of U.S. tariffs on steel and autos, found ways to grow in other directions. It turned adversity into expansion. The USDA projects high wheat inventories. But that statistic hides a growing concern: unsold grain stacking up in storage. It's not about what was harvested, it's about what hasn't moved. 5.9 million tons sold may sound strong, but without continued buyer confidence, the U.S. slips to 4th place in global exports. The foundation is cracking. Tariff wars only deepen the rift. Trump-era policies disrupted critical imports, like potash fertilizer from Canada, causing input costs to skyrocket for U.S. farmers. Production became more expensive. Buyers became more cautious. Worse still, immigration bottlenecks thinned the available farm labor force, delaying harvest logistics even further. The system didn't just strain, it buckled. Canada isn't just shipping wheat, it's exporting reliability. There are no sudden rule changes, no tariff tantrums, no bureaucratic surprises, just results. Meanwhile, the U.S. remains trapped between a harvest-heavy present and an unstable future. Even with solid crops, it battles inconsistent immigration policies, outdated customs systems, and economic decisions made more for headlines than for trade security. Canada may have missed a short-term export projection, but it still posted gains outside U.S. dependency. That's not luck, that's design. So the burning question remains: can America reclaim its crown? Not without structural change, not without rebuilding global confidence, because in global agriculture, quality matters. But predictability wins. And in the world of wheat, no buyer stays loyal to a seller they can't count on. Once that trust is broken, the title of world leader doesn't just vanish, it gets handed to someone else.
One farmer captured that mood in a headline that reads, "Trump's tariffs are no fun for farmers like me."
There was a time when, if someone asked, "Where does the world get its wheat?" the answer came quickly and confidently: from the United States. From the golden waves of Kansas to the endless plains of North Dakota, American wheat wasn't just a commodity. It was a symbol, a standard, a promise. But now, in the 2025-26 season, that symbol is fading. According to the USDA, U.S. wheat exports are projected to fall to just 21.8 million metric tons, the lowest in modern memory. And across the border, Canada is expected to export 27 million tons, overtaking its southern neighbor with little fanfare and no resistance. No speeches, no headlines, just numbers that speak louder than any policy. The U.S. has been surpassed, not by innovation, but by consistency. This wasn't a lucky year. It was a calculated pivot. After harsh tariffs on canola exports from China and the U.S., thousands of Canadian farmers did something bold. They shifted. Out went canola. In came spring wheat, and with it, a renewed national export strategy. With the help of high-efficiency hybrid seeds, federal incentives for crop diversification, artificial intelligence integrated irrigation and soil testing, real-time export tracking systems, Canada didn't just meet expectations, it crushed them. By December 11th, nearly 22.2 million tons had already been shipped abroad. Saskatchewan became a shipping nerve center. Manitoba retooled entire warehouse networks. At the Port of Vancouver, grain vessels departed like clockwork, carrying loads to Asia, the Middle East, and beyond. Canada wasn't just delivering wheat, it was delivering certainty. Meanwhile, in the heart of American farmland, the story felt different, bleaker, more silent. Spring wheat acreage shrank to just 9.4 million acres, the lowest since 1970. For many farmers, it wasn't a question of will, it was a matter of survival. Input prices soared. Climate conditions worsened. Labor shortages due to immigration crackdowns left harvests unfinished. And as international markets pulled away, co-ops scaled back or shut down. In Kansas, grain silos sat full. In North Dakota, combines were parked early. In Washington state, export terminals once linked to Asia had nothing left to ship. But perhaps the most painful part was this. No one protested, because no one noticed. The global retreat, one customer at a time. Philippines canceled a shipment of 12,000 tons of U.S. wheat and ordered 110,000 tons from Canada and Australia. South Korea, U.S. market share fell from 35% to under 17% amid compliance issues. Canada surged past 60%. Mexico, frustrated by erratic U.S. export rules, slashed imports by 40%. Canada stepped in with smooth logistics and predictable paperwork. Italy, once loyal to U.S. durum wheat, shifted 45% of orders to Canada for better quality tracking and gluten control. These weren't political betrayals. They were practical choices. And the bread, it tasted the same. The pasta, just as firm. Only the source had changed. This was never about being the cheapest. And it's no longer about having the highest yield. It's about trust. In today's global economy, where one policy shift can sink a contract and a single late shipment can ripple across 5 nations, buyers are no longer chasing the biggest name. They want reliability, transparency, confidence. And in 2025, Canada offered that. The United States did not. So what happens next? Can America regain its dominance? Only if it fixes more than price. It must repair the very thing that built its wheat empire in the first place, reliability. Because in this new era, exporting wheat is no longer about feeding the world. It's about proving, every season, that you can be counted on. And as farmers in Kansas now know all too well, when the world loses faith in you, it doesn't leave with a bang. It leaves with an invoice, addressed to someone else.
U.S. President Donald Trump leveraged trade talks to get Canada to back off the digital services tax, and now his sights might be set on a bigger fish, or is it a cow? Trump has long complained about the system in place to protect Canada's dairy industry, known as supply management.
In 2025, Donald Trump reignited his campaign of economic pressure. One deal at a time, one threat at a time. He's already pushed Canada back to the table. Now he wants more. And his new target isn't steel or tech, it's milk. Trump has long slammed Canada's dairy supply management system, a system he says cheats American farmers and distorts trade. With bilateral talks underway and a July 21st deadline looming, the question is clear. Will Trump make dairy the next big demand? And if he does, how far will Canada go to resist?
Listen, Donald Trump is in Iowa tonight. He has said he will be talking about his trade agenda as it relates to farmers. sounds like another chance for him to weigh in on his complaints about Canadian dairy.
Trump is attacking a system that has defined Canadian dairy for decades. Supply management sets strict quotas on how much milk Canadian farmers can produce and how much foreign milk can enter. Once import quotas are filled, tariffs spike, often to 250 or even 300%. To Trump, that's not partnership, that's protectionism. He says American farmers are locked out, even when agreements like USMCA promised better access. At recent rallies, he's escalated the pressure, linking dairy tariffs to bigger grievances, trade deficits, unfair subsidies, and what he calls a one-sided relationship. His logic is simple. If Canada wants a broader trade deal, the dairy wall has to come down. And for a president who thrives on clear wins, breaking Canada's dairy defenses would be another trophy. But this time, Canada isn't just relying on quiet resistance. In June, the Canadian Parliament passed a law that explicitly prohibits using the dairy system as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations. The legislation passed unanimously, supported by every party. The message? Dairy is off the table. For supporters, the system isn't just about milk. It's about food security, rural jobs, and price stability. Instead of chasing volatile global markets, Canada caps production, sets prices based on actual costs, and avoids overproduction. It's not perfect, but it's predictable. And for smaller farms in Quebec, BC, and across the prairies, that predictability means survival. Still, the pressure is real. The U.S. ambassador has publicly stated that if Trump and Carney reach a deal, Parliament will find a way to follow. In other words, laws can change if the political will is there.
And like Mr. Carney is a good man, he's an intelligent man, but is the only arbiter of what's in the best interest of Canada?
For Prime Minister Mark Carney, the next few weeks will be critical. He's promised to protect the dairy system, but he also wants a comprehensive trade deal with the U.S., one that restores stability for auto parts, steel, and cross-border investment. If Canada refuses to budge on dairy, Trump could walk away or impose new tariffs starting July 9th. But if Carney concedes, the political cost could be severe. Dairy is deeply embedded in Canada's political fabric. The new law was designed to raise the stakes, to ensure that any future concession would come with a heavy price. And Carney knows. Yielding now could fracture support across key provinces. Former officials have already warned about setting dangerous precedents. One retreat invites another. And if dairy falls, what comes next? Water? Environment? Immigration? This is no longer just a policy debate. It's a confrontation between two visions of power, Trump's brute force leverage and Canada's attempt to defend a domestic model built over generations. If Trump succeeds in cracking Canada's dairy shield, it will be more than a trade victory. It will prove that even the most entrenched domestic systems can fall under pressure. And if Carney holds the line, it could mark the moment Canada reasserts its economic sovereignty or faces retaliation. Either way, the clock is ticking, and the milk fight is just getting started.